All right, I'd like to open the Board of Select meeting for Tuesday, December 17, 2019. Before we get started, would you please stand and salute the flag? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's get started on this cold and snowy night. Just for housekeeping, poor Melissa is sick as a puppy, so Melissa's not going to be with us.
Okay.
So Ms. Wellman, she'll watch the video and help with the meeting notes at a later date, that's all.
Okay.
So we wish her a recovery. So let's jump to our schedule items. Number one is a holiday and a change in manager application. So here's the deal with that. So for the change of manager, there's typically 5 things. It's a manager application, it's a query authentication, it's the vote of entry, proof of citizenship, and payments received. So there's a slew of criteria that the candidate must meet, and all the paperwork was in line, and the individual is Jonathan Schisler. He's going to be the new manager. So with that said, is there any questions from the board as far as the application? Okay, seeing none, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the change of manager application as presented tonight.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, 4-0. And, another point of order. Ms. Stronach is running a little bit late, so she'll be here momentarily, that's all. You're supposed to keep me honest there. All right, let's move into, at this point, it's the resident section. Seeing none, I don't blame any of the residents, seeing this night is miserable, so there's no residents. What we'll do is let's jump to new business. And I kind of called this a formality, so under new business, what we're going to do is set date for the annual town meeting. So we have May 4th, 2020, and we have special town meeting 2020, May 6th, to open and close the warrants. So, Mr. Montori, pretty standard stuff. I don't see any issues with that, and that has been outlined in the upcoming dates for 2020.
Right, the annual town meeting is per town bylaw, set for May, which is the first Monday in May. That's May 4th, 2020 at 7:30. Special town meeting traditionally is the Wednesday of that week, which is May 6th at 7 p.m. Both are at Tewksbury Memorial High School. So if the board could first vote to approve those dates and location and time.
Thank you, Mr. Montori. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
make a motion to set the dates of the annual and special town meetings. Annual town meeting on May 4, 2020, beginning at 7:30 p.m. at Tewksbury Memorial High School, and special town meeting Wednesday, May 6, 2020, at 7 p.m., also at Tewksbury Memorial High School.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, our third item of new business is special speed regulations, Andover Street.
Chairman,
Oh,
point of
yes.
order. I think we have to vote to open and close,
Right.
the dates to open and close the warrants.
Okay,
So Mr. Chairman, I'm recommending that we open the town meeting warrant for annual and special town meeting warrant articles starting tomorrow, December 18th, 2019, and closing at 4:30 p.m. Friday, January 31st, 2020.
okay, so we'll have to make a vote. So again, that's opening tomorrow, December 19th, closing January 31st.
December 18th.
December 18th tomorrow, okay. Today is the 17th, very good.
Yep.
And you said closing January 31st at
Yes.
4:30 PM?
4:30 p.m., it's a Friday.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Just had a quick question.
Sure.
Do we usually close special town meeting the same day?
We have been
I
in
wonder
the
why
last few
I
years.
thought it was later. That's 'cause
We
I've
used,
been-
we used to do it later, but because of the mailing and everything, we just lumped it all together.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
okay.
Questions from the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
I got it right here. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we open the warrants for the annual and special town meeting articles on December 18, 2019, and we close the warrants at 4:30 p.m. Friday, January 31st, 2020.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second
Any
that.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay, let's go to our third item under new business. This is special speed regulations. Now, we have, there's three particular streets in question. One street in particular, Shawshene, has two updates. So we're going to talk about Andover Street, we're going to talk about Shawshene Street in two sections, and we're also going to talk about Whipple Road. So I'm going to kind of pause there. And Mr. Montori, just for the board and for the residents, could you please share a little background as to kind of what we're going to talk about and what we're potentially going to vote upon as the selectmen for this evening?
Sure. So over the past few years, there's been a discussion regarding speed limits throughout the community. Particularly, there was a focus on Andover Street, Shawshene Street, and Whipple Road. The DPW utilized a consultant to undertake a study regarding speed limits and a speed study for those three streets. And the study came back with a variety of recommendations that we sent to Mass Highway, because none of the speed limits on those streets could be changed up or down without Mass Highway approval or Mass DOT approval. And after the study went to Mass DOT, they came back with the following recommendations: that Andover Street be reduced from an existing 45-mile-per-hour speed limit to 40 miles per hour from approximately Deering Drive to the Andover Town Line. On Shawshene Street, to reduce the existing 40-mile-per-hour street speed limit from 35 to 35 miles per hour from Ronald Drive to approximately Diane Drive. Also on Shawshene Street, to reduce the existing 40-mile-per-hour speed limit from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour from approximately Pinewood Avenue to approximately Trinity Court. And then finally, on Whipple Road, increase the length of the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit near Pleasant Street intersection in the 25-mile-per-hour zone between 922 Whipple Road and 758 Whipple Road. So those recommendations were approved by Mass DOT. They were sent back to the town. They were reviewed by the town engineer. He has submitted a memo to me that I provided to the board recommending that these be implemented. And if the board approves them tonight, I have the documents to sign to send back to Mass Highway. And then we will begin the process of educating the public of these changes through the DPW and the police department. And we can monitor these changes as we go along, and if we feel there's further changes needed, we can address that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Montori. Okay, I have some questions, but I'd like to open it up to the board for questions, comments.
I have a question.
Please.
Through you to the town manager, just wanting to understand that particularly on the Shawshene Street sections, but all of them are applicable. Are these in both directions, northbound, southbound, eastbound, westbound?
Yes.
Because the documents that go with this indicate the speeds in both directions and
They are in
on
both
those streets. So I
directions.
just want to be very clear that it's both directions. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
No, good question.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman. Ms. Stronach?
I do not have any comments. I think that we have continued to present this, so it'll be good to get some closure on this matter.
Very good. Mr. Kratman?
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. I believe a section of this, especially Shawshene, wasn't this the area that we had a contention that there was, the speed limits were changed without the formal approval?
Yeah, there were some parts of Shawshene that,
So
yeah.
what we're really doing is we're going back to what was there.
Yes,
There was something that happened in the past and we didn't get the formal approval, and I know a lot of residents were upset that they thought that we actually raised the speed limit. But what happened was we didn't raise the speed limit. We never officially voted it to put it what it's supposed to be.
Correct.
Now this is the way we're doing it to make it right, to correct what was
Yeah,
out there.
no, that-
And Mass DOT made us go back out and raise the speed limit to what it was supposed to be. So now with this study, we're implementing what the residents wanted, I believe.
correct.
We're going out there. So I know we got a number of calls asking why we're putting it up 5 miles in a couple of areas where it was winding roads in certain areas. So I think this is a great thing, safety for the community, safety for the kids that are going to be out there, especially when there's no sidewalks out there. So I want to thank the DPW for doing their work, especially our engineering company for getting that done.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. Mr. Brian Dick?
Just kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Kratman said, I think it's been a formal study, with texting and, all that type of things. The windy roads, those roads are pretty speedy from time to time. I live off of Whipple, so I understand that. So I support this, and I think it'll be good. I just want to make sure that we're communicating it, which it sounds like the town manager and the the DPW will be broadcasting the changes, so there'll be enough notification, and I'm sure our police force will work with our residents while these changes go on, but I think it's a good thing for the town. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brian Dick. Actually, Mr. Brian Dick, you hit it. I think communication is the key here, Mr. Montori. We all know about social media, between Facebook and Twitter and otherwise. I can see the Board of Selectmen took it in their own hands to do A, B, and C with the road. So clearly here, this is not, it's a science in the fact that we had a strategy from Mass DOT, internal, our department heads, DPW and whatnot, and Kevin Hardeman, our town engineer, came up with this. So I'm not going to highlight the specific, where we're doing it, but I just want to kind of highlight for the residents. Andover Street, reduction. Shawshene Street, reduction of speed. Shawshene Street, in another area, it's reduction. And last but not least, Whipple is going to be the increase. So my thing was communication is key. The second piece, what if a resident were to say, something, I think it should be increased, or a resident comes, something that's not reduced enough? What would be the process that a resident kind of reaches out to the board to have that conversation? So I'm just thinking ahead in the future that we listen to the residents, because obviously some of the residents live here, and they might say, something, we should increase it or decrease it or otherwise. I'm just thinking about the residents that live there in these areas.
Yeah, I think in the past what's happened, because we've had that, residents have sent letters to us that the board has discussed at their meetings, or they've asked to be on the agenda to discuss it with the board. If the board feels that it's something we should look into, they would vote to do that and have the DPW undertake a study to have a professional look at it, and we'll see what the results of the study are, and if it warrants a change, we'll send it into Mass DOT. There are some flexibility in that because of some changes we've made in accepting state statutes that we can, the board has the authority to make some of those changes without going to Mass DOT, and that's possible also. But I would start with something in writing for the board to take up at a board meeting, or have them place themselves on an agenda.
Okay. And last but not least, I could see a potential resident question would be, okay, we're going to implement this. When we implement it, I know it's going to take time, even if we vote for the approval, is how do you monitor it? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it, so are we going to have any type of what's the good word, metrics associated with, okay, we changed these dates on X, and 6 months later, you know what I mean? So what if this particular, this could be, I'm just thinking out loud, if this could be potentially detrimental, where we change something and say, holy mackerel, we're getting more accidents, so to speak, on a particular.
Yeah, I can ask the police department before we implement this, that once it is implemented, that the traffic unit monitor it and give us some feedback over the next, say, give it 6 months and see how we do. And
Does that make sense to the board?
I think so.
Good idea.
Just to add to that, Mr. Chairman, with all these roadways, there's always a yin to every yang that goes out there. It may not be the road that we're dealing with, that we're changing the speed limit out there, but there's a lot of secondary roads that tie into these roads. So we may have a Chandler coming off of it, or we may have a Pleasant Street coming off of it, where if you're lowering the speed limits and cars are going slower down that roadway, well, now it's backing up traffic a little bit. So now the traffic that used to flow off those secondary roads, those get backed up a little bit. So you have to see what works. And that's why a 5 mile speed limit, that's why the studies they'll look at the secondary roads as they do those studies. So you don't want something, especially during peak hours, to be changing. Where 5 miles an hour may not seem to be a big difference on one roadway, but it may cause a trickle effect on a secondary roadway. So that's why we have to be careful when we're doing it. And having an expert go out there and take a look at those things, that's always helpful when we're doing those. Our town engineer knows these things. He's always looking at these type of things, and I trust his opinion on this.
Okay, very good. That's my final point would be, I just would ask the board to keep a very open mind if we do get approached for a resident, that lives directly on any of these segments. That's all. All right, that's all I had. Any other questions from the board?
I should, I don't know if I have to, but I will, declare that I live on Shawshene Street, on one of these places that's affected by the speed change, but I feel I can vote fairly on the matter.
So that means you're gonna have to, that means you're gonna get the homework assignment to keep a track on this particular segment for good, bad, or indifferent,
And we'll
Ms.
see
Wellman, that's
how
all.
many more car accidents there are that crash into my fence. We'll see if there are any.
Very good. Well, oh, by the way, for the record, I do believe this is a good thing, that's all. Very good thing. Okay, any other questions, comments from the board? What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special speed regulations on Andover Street, Shawshene Street, and Whipple Road as presented by the town manager tonight.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's the pleasure of the board. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0, unanimous, thank you. All right, what's the next order of business is liquor license approval. So now our next order of business is liquor license approval, common victual license approval. I always get, that word always stumps me there. Thank you very much. In Ireland, a victorial is actually a butcher. See that? You learn something every single day.
I did know.
Then next, we're going to move to amusement license approvals, entertainment license approvals, pool table license approvals, and last but not least, class license approvals. And typically, that's going to deal with automobile selling. So, Mr. Montori, this is pretty typical for any community, that every single year, what we do is we look at the businesses, which ones are outstanding, which ones are delinquent with taxes, or delinquent with a particular violation. So after reviewing all of the licenses, and we will take these up one by one, we'll go right down the list. But I think it's amazing in the fact that all of our businesses within Tewksbury, there's nothing delinquent, there's no red flags, there's no, and most of the businesses, keep me honest, Mr. Montori, have already paid the associated fee associated with the license. So for a community, for these business owners, that's pretty incredible for a town and a business community to be that in front of the game. So it's really almost, for the sake of our vote, and I'm not meaning this as being trivial, it's almost like a no-brainer in the fact that it's, all we simply have to do is review them and then make a yay and nay vote. But I can tell you, studying other communities and watching other Board of Selectmen meetings for other communities, it's incredible how long this process takes for each of these particular business entities. So it's a credit to you, Mr. Montori, Christine, and Janine, working in the Board of Selectmen office to get ahead of it, and it's also a credit to our business owners across town, to also be, do what, it's incredible to do what they do so we can be on target and on time and have really nothing to talk about. So I'm going to pause there before we get into the liquor license approval. Any questions from the board? All right, let's jump into it. So we'll take them one at a time. So what we're going to do first is going to move into the liquor license approval. So there's a number of liquor license approvals. I think we've all read each and every establishment with the associated hours. So I'm going to pause there, and do we have any questions on the board or liquor license approvals at this time? It's that easy? Very good, all right. So what is the, and I think as a board, what we can do is just collectively make bulk approvals, because like I said, we don't have to pull any out individually to talk about any individually at this time. So what is the pleasure of the board for the liquor license approvals for 2020?
Make a motion to approve with discussion.
Please, proceed.
I just would like to say that the town manager also gave us the last drink report for the last quarter, and I would also, being on the board, I want to echo your sentiments about the taxes and the fees, because this is the first time, I actually looked twice to see if I was missing something on the taxes, so I want to mention that. And number two, I would like to just mention that we do get a after hours call, which basically means that anybody who has a action with the police, and it's served in one of our establishments, gets on that. And we are proud to say that none of our establishments were on that report for the last quarter, so it's a pretty lengthy report.
It is.
So I just want to note that for the record as well.
Good call out, excellent. So I have a motion to approve the liquor license for 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second with Mr. Kratman. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0 unanimous. All right, we're going to move to the common victorial license. Same deal here, nothing's delinquent, all the paperwork is in order. Questions, comments from the board? What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2020 common victular licenses as they are presented in our packet this evening.
Okay, and just for the residents, it's a sell or furnish food essentially. I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Next is the entertainment license approval. Questions, comments from the board? What is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the amusement license approvals as submitted in tonight's package.
Motion to have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, 5-0. That's going to move us to the next one. This one's an entertainment license approval. Now, just for the record and just for the residents, there's not one particular license in question. I probably should have highlighted this to the residents. We do have some special licenses, meaning they're all not the same exact time, that whether they can serve alcohol or what I'm saying is there's different forms of entertainment license based on the different businesses that come in. They might have different hours. That's all I want to highlight. Nothing more, nothing less.
And just for the residents, if they are in an establishment and they want to know that, these are visible in the thing so they can see it. It's right on the license itself.
Very good. What's the pleasure of the board for the entertainment license approvals?
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's entertainment licenses presented in our package.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. This moves us to pool table licenses approvals. Pool table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2020 pool table licenses as presented in our packet.
Second.
Motion, do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Last but not least, this is the class license approval. And Mr. Montori, can we just do a quick summary in regards to what is a class license approval? I did get some comments from the residents. I know it deals with typically the sale, distribution of automobiles, business.
Yes, it's the sale of, Class 1 is for new cars, Class 2 is for used cars, and then Class 3 is usually, for lack of a better word, junk cars, things like that.
Okay.
Salvage. Yeah.
Salvage, we have it, yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you, that's a
Okay.
better word.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, any questions, or what's the pleasure of the board for class license approvals?
I make a motion to approve the class license approvals as presented in tonight's package.
Everyone should have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous 5-0. Okay, that concludes all of the new 2020 license approvals.
I took Mark's pen.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You're good. All right, that brings us to town manager, Mr. Montori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of brief items. First is senior town council's invoice for October 16th through October 31st in the amount of $7,850, and I would recommend the board approve payment.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented by the town manager.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Then I have town council's invoice for November 1st, 2019 through November 15th, 2019, in the amount of $3,357.50, and I would recommend approval to pay.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented and recommended by the town manager.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kratman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Hawaii 5-0.
That is it.
All right, Mr. Montori, I know that's not in a section, but we are getting a lot of questions regarding Mr. Chief Sheehan. I always call him the Bill Belichick of police chiefs. After 32 years, he's retiring. He's had the helm the last 10 years. So just for the residents, can you kind of describe the process as how by we're going to select our new chief of police for Tewksbury?
Sure. So Chief Sheehan will be retiring effective January 3rd, Friday, January 3rd, which is his last day. I have hired the consulting firm BadgeQuest to conduct an assessment center that has been approved by civil service to hire the next police chief. And the assessment center is a series of has a series of things that the candidates will have to do. There'll be a writing sample, there'll be problem solving, there will be a presentation, different exercises they have to go through and are graded by assessors who are former police chiefs from other communities who have experience in this field and have done assessment centers in the past. The candidates will come from within the department. This is a appointment that will be made from within the department. We're not looking to go outside. The assessment center will take place February 13th. It's an all-day process, and then the results will be provided to me to make a final appointment. In the interim, between the time that the chief leaves on January 3rd through the time a final appointment is made, Deputy Chief John Voda will be acting chief. I've spoke to John this past week, and that appointment will take effect somewhere in the time frame of January 3rd. Based on the great work that Chief Sheehan's done since he's been chief, it should be a seamless transition, both for the acting chief and then the final appointment of the next chief.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions from the board? All right, seeing none, it brings us to minutes. Ms. Wellman?
Thank you very much. I would like to recommend approval of the October 15, 2009 regular session minutes.
I'll second that.
I have a motion second. Any questions? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the November 19, 2019 regular session minutes.
For motion, I have a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Stronach. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you very much. Any other minutes?
Not this evening, no, we're pretty much caught up.
Perfect, very good. All right, that brings us almost to the end here. Next is board member reports. How about we start with Mr. Mark Kratman?
I'm going to be short and sweet. We had a Lowell Regional Transit Board meeting on 12/5, discussing about revenues. It's actually had some good numbers. Tewksbury actually is always up in the top 3 of using the service, so it's great for especially seniors and a number of people that are able to use that service that's going through. And with all the cities and towns, we're trying to upgrade, do some improvements to it and make it, maybe try to extend the route someplace where we find out what people want in the town. We may look at trying to get a stop at the library at some point. Zoning bylaw, we had a couple of presentations on 12/9, 12/10. We had it open to the public. We had a number of people come in asking questions, got a lot of answers, and we have a website, we have an email address. If you go to our town website, if you have any questions, you can gladly review the presentation. We're going to have additional meetings. We're going to have 3 more meetings in January. There'll be 2 at night and 1 during the daytime. And we want the public to be involved. We want to hear their questions, their concerns about any proposed changes, and get any input. I think we heard a lot of good questions, and we've taken those all into considerations when we're making this presentation. Once we get those answers, it'll be coming before the board. Economic development, we're gonna, after the holidays, we'll get back together. We'll probably have a meeting in January. Everybody took a little break from that, but we're moving forward with a lot of things in the community as well. That's all I have tonight.
Very good. How about Ms. Stronach?
I have a few things. First of all, the elementary building committee will be meeting this Thursday at 6 PM. It is a milestone meeting because we'll be voting on the 60% design completion documents. That's a big submission to the MSBA, and it's an exciting milestone for us. So that's the elementary building committee. The events committee had a very successful tree lighting on the Commons a couple of weeks ago on Friday, and I want to thank everybody who worked so hard to put that together. And last Thursday night, we met and we reorged our committee, and Moira Gray, who has been serving as the chair for a couple of years now, has stepped down as chair. And Alex Lauder has been voted in as the new chair. We also have two committee members who have resigned. One being, I think, on the committee for 5 years, Dennis Gray. I want to thank him for his work. And the other one is Amy Sullivan, who's been on the committee for 2 years. Basically, just, it's hard to keep commitments and it's work. So I want to thank them for their work on that. The last thing that I would like to talk about is the Housing Authority. We did receive the DHCD report, which gives us our housing stock. And currently, our housing stock is at 9.7. Obviously, our threshold is 10%, and we work really hard for that. We're in the middle of a unit that is coming online shortly that will put us at 10.1% and will get us where we need to be. But as with everything else, the target is moving, and the 2020 census results will be out next year, and the housing stock will then be reassessed. The housing partnership is working very diligently with the town manager's office to increase the affordable housing to make that threshold. So I just want to remind people that it is something that's on the radar. And the last thing that I have is I noticed, put out some announcements for a whole bunch of boards and committees, and we have some people at the Council on Aging, longtime residents on those committees as well. Patty Sanso and Linda, I think it's Lane, right? Who are coming off, and I just want to thank them for their work too. And I did one more thing. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and all the best for the new year. That's it.
Awesome, very good. Ms. Wellman?
Mr. Kelly, just a couple of things tonight. The Beautification Committee recognized 2 local businesses for keeping their businesses attractive and beautiful. And part of what the Beautification Committee does is tries to recognize businesses with all kinds of circumstances. So whether they're a leased business or they own their own land and building and so forth. So the 2 that were recognized for this month were Angelina's Italian Restaurant and the mobile gas station at the corner of River Road and Andover Street. It's very well cared for. So for our residents, just to know, it's a nice thing. And my understanding is the business owners are very pleased with that recognition. So it's great. I had my December meeting with NIMCOG on Wednesday, the 11th, and it was sort of the annual Christmas party and holiday gathering, so which was very nice at the Middlesex Meeting House in Billerica. However, we noted that we voted to ask our chair to vote in the affirmative for an increase in the tip for the River Road, Andover Street project that's going on, because the 100% design came in, it went from 3.5 million at 25% design to 4.95 million, so it increased quite a bit. And those costs will be covered by the block grant that will be funding. There's some funding sources there for that. So that 21-day comment period should be opening tomorrow. The Northern Middlesex Metropolitan Planning Organization is the one that makes that decision, and they're meeting tomorrow night. And if they vote to approve that with our chair there, the NIMCOG chair voting in favor of that, then that 21-day comment period will begin. Okay. There we are. Very
good. Mr. Brian Dick?
I just have one item, that's the athletic field subcommittee and facility subcommittee. I'm going to have a meeting. It's been posted for January 7th at 4:30 at the town hall. So that meeting, the agenda will be short and sweet. It'll just be an update from the town manager and the project team on the next steps and what's been going on with the elementary building committee and the athletic fields.
Okay. Very good. All right, short and sweet, just a few things. Shout out to the DPW. Sometimes these poor guys and ladies get hit over the head in the town. I can tell you, we had a storm, was not, a few weeks back on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Sunday into Monday, Tuesday. And just to direct the residents, I got a few calls, and I directed the residents to call the DPW, and in a few hours, believe it or not, the DPW reacted. And just for the residents, just so the residents know, we do hire new contractors, so they may not be aware of the route or where to push the snow. So once they put calls in, they reacted very quickly. In the sidewalks as well, we talked about sidewalks and getting plowed in a timely fashion. I can tell you the sidewalks up by the Pleasant Street School, the Heathbrook, and over by the Trahan, unbelievable. It was a day with the machines. So big shout out to the DPW, because I know a bunch of those folks literally worked around the clock. So that was huge. And last but not least, we talked about Chief Sheehan. There's going to be a farewell reception on Friday, January 3rd at 9 o'clock at the Tewksbury Country Club. So we'll be representing there. So unbelievable. South Portland is lucky to get the chief. His last 10 years has been incredible. His leadership, his level of professionalism has been admirable and commendable. So we will miss the chief here for 33 years of serving Tewksbury in the community. Pretty amazing. And like I said, he is, just like Mr. Montori, the Bill Belichick of Chief of Police's. So we wish him well. And that's all I had. I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to the residents of Tewksbury. And with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Second.
Mr. Kratman, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you very much.